commission to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
The board is now open for roll call. Commissioner Basham has requested an excuse. Have a quorum present.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Everyone could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item.
Reading, correcting, and approval of the journal.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Baydun.
Move for approval.
Been moved and supported. Are there any corrections, changes to the journal? Hearing none, please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much. Next item.
Report from the chair.
Okay, so this is, as you all know, our third meeting of this month because we have work to do. So when there's work to do, we have to do it no matter how many meetings it takes to do it. So we are here because we have some very important items for consideration for today. As I mentioned earlier, we have so many contracts coming before us over the next month or so. So please anticipate extra meetings if we need to get the work done for Wayne County. With that, next item, Madam Clerk.
We are on page 2 of the agenda, upcoming meetings.
Everyone, please note the upcoming meetings as well as the first full board of October, which will be October 6th, which is next Thursday. Next item.
We are moving to the new business items. Item number 2 on page 3, requesting commission approval of a 3-year memorandum of understanding between the Charter County of Wayne and the Third Judicial Circuit Court to define the standing authority and roles of the parties for delivering juvenile justice services in Wayne County.
Okay, we're going to take the court contracts first. First one, as indicated, is the Third Circuit Court Juvenile Justice Services. And who is here to speak to this? Good morning. Want to help you with your mic? Okay, thank you. It's on now.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Melissa Fernandez, Division Director for Juvenile Services for Wayne County HHVS. And this is our MOU with the Third Circuit Court for the delivery of juvenile services. We are requesting approval of the new MOU, which also includes the raise the age expectations as well as the YAZI risk assessment that we've included in this 3-year agreement.
Okay, so this is our new memorandum of understanding from October 1 until 2025. Nothing new except for the raise the age provision that was placed on due to state law. Can you speak to that for a bit?
Sure, the raise the age allows for 17 to 18-year-old juveniles to be young people to be adjudicated in juvenile court. And that is currently being 100% under child care fund covered for the next couple of years. We also included the YAZI risk assessment. So that's a risk assessment that we're working on with the prosecutor's office to assess youth in the front end of the court process.
All right, are there any questions on the MOU between Third Circuit Court, Wayne County for the juvenile services? Any questions? Commissioner Killeen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have had discussions. I've had discussions with you. I've had discussions with a couple of members of the probate bench. There is a proposal out there for juvenile probation for the courts. Is there any update on where we're at with that?
Correct. I do have a meeting next week with one of our judges on that, and that's the RFK initiative, which is the Juvenile Probation Initiative, to strengthen our probation services so that we can streamline more youth to the community. So we have no updates at this time as to rolling that out.
I've gotten all the paperwork on what this is, and if I read this right, this is going to be another tool for probate judges not to incarcerate more young folks into the JDF. Is that accurate statement?
That's accurate. It would support our current CMOs and probation officers to be able to provide increased services in the community to prevent secure residential placement.
So that's another aspect to this that could be coming.
Correct. We hope so. And we continue our conversations with the court on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Anderson?
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Hernandez, I just wondered what kind of impact we're going to be anticipating with the problems that we're already having in that department in juvenile.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think as everyone knows, we have a systemic issue going on right now in the state and the country. And so we have a lack of placement in the community, which is impacting our length of stay at the juvenile detention facility. And we also have the state closing facilities, which also impacts that. One of the things that we talked about in this MOU was our level 1.5 probation, which has always been included in the MOU, but we discussed the priority of placing kids on tether that are eligible to do that. And so that's new as well in the MOU, is that priority of placing kids on tether that are deemed appropriate for 1.5 level probation, which is community probation with enhanced and extra supports.
Just a question for myself. Once someone, one of those juveniles or anyone that has a tether, tampers with the tether, they're ineligible to be on tether from that point forward?
The jurist can put a clause for immediate apprehension and then place them in.
So it's up to
Detention.
the judge that they appear in front of? Okay.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Marecki?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned that for the next 2 years, this will be financed through the Child Care Fund. What's going to happen after that?
So that's for raise the age specifically.
Oh,
Child Care
okay.
Fund is 50% covered, but raise the age is 100%. And after that 2 years, the state will work with everyone on deciding what happens after that. If it will be covered 50% or they will continue at 100%. We just don't
Okay,
know.
so how much are they going to give us for the 2 years?
So it's 100, everyone that's in the raise the age has been identified at raise the age. That 17 and 18-year-old population will be 100% covered by the state.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, thank you.
Any additional questions? Commissioner Khalil?
Recognize me a second time, Madam Chair. I would like to hear from Third Circuit Court on this. They have signed the document, but I just would like to hear from the court in terms of how this suits their needs. And as we know, funding all over the county is very difficult. And just discuss a little bit about the challenges that the court faces, even given this agreement and what else may be beyond the agreement that are challenges the courts are facing.
Chief Judge Kinney is here. Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioner Colleen. If I can address your questions. When the raise the age law was passed, it became a real big question mark for us in terms of funding, because we could estimate by looking back pre-pandemic how many 17-year-olds were going through the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice, but that's no guarantee that that's exactly what you're going to get. But I think the big challenge, speaking personally, I think the big challenge is that it's shocking, in my view, to know that there are only 150 some odd beds in the entire state that are secure beds for juveniles that judges have determined just can't be at home and just can't be on probation. They need to be in a residential environment in order to get their treatment. And that's shocking. I mean, I think if you were to say that there were 150 secure beds for Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County altogether, we'd be thinking, well, that may be cutting it kind of close. But to think that it's for the whole state is a problem. And what's happened is what we see happening right now. And that is there are almost 70 juveniles who have already been adjudicated. And by a judge has indicated that they need to go to a secure bed placement. They have to get their treatment out of their home environment. And instead of waiting as they had, say, pre-pandemic, 21 days or 2 weeks or something like that, some of them have been there 6, 7 months. And when is that going to happen? So I think it's a problem. I think it's kind of a storm cloud for the county, because quite frankly, they're stuck in the juvenile detention facility, and all of the costs and all of the resources that are needed are getting pushed down to the county level. I mean, I have 9 grandchildren, and many of my grandchildren are in that under 17 age group. And if you think about a juvenile who has been in the JDF for 7 months or 8 months or something like that, no matter how much we're trying our best efforts, if they need like mental health services, realistically, the JDF is not the therapeutic environment. It was never designed to be that. And what about the fact that they've lost a whole year academically? I mean, they're getting some educational help. I'm not taking away anything from the good efforts that are being done, but it's not the same. So I think that's a real challenge. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. And Judge Kenny, who funds those beds? Where would the funding come from to provide more beds, either for mental health or a secure facility? Where does that get funded from?
My understanding is that it's the state. It's from MDHS.
And this has been, to say the least, an ongoing problem in a couple of areas to have the availability of those beds. So I would hope that the county could put a plan together to go to Lansing. Try to secure some funding up there, because without that, as you indicate, costs fall back to the county, as well as liability kind of costs, very expensive for the county. So I hope we as a county can marshal ourselves to get to Lansing and to try to correct some of the funding problem here to respond to this obvious and huge need.
We're certainly not serving the youth well either.
Say again, sir?
I said we're not serving the youth well either.
Correct.
I mean, they're supposed to be in an environment that has the kind of resources and structure that will help them so that they can return to their parents and return to the community. And if everything's stuck in neutral, they're not getting any better. Probably some of them are getting worse. And so I think it really is a very urgent issue that, in my view, the state needs to take action.
As our county juvenile department, when we took it over from the state, 2000 or whatever, the numbers changed drastically because of the way that the county handled youth and providing services and not incarcerating people. And so I think there's a proven track record that by getting the proper funding in these areas, we can do a lot better for a lot of youth that still are not getting So I think we have a good case to make up in Lansing for that.
You too.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have a list, Commissioner Varga, then Commissioner Clark Coleman.
Thank you. I was wondering if maybe this could be attached to the community corrections program.
We currently are having some conversations regarding a grant program where we can connect with community corrections, specifically with our older youth as well.
Because if they could, they would not only be able to get mental health, but they could also get some of the vocational programs that they offer. So I'm sure Commissioner Clark Coleman will be working on that.
Commissioner Clark Coleman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to mention the fact that Ebony McCann, who is Director of the Community Corrections Advisory Board, has already approached me with a plan to be able to address some of the issues of the juveniles that are there. And, I guess my real, and that's a good thing, because I believe that we can get the funding from the state through the Community Corrections Board to be able to address some of them, but not all of them. And I guess my real concern is, as you stated, Judge Kenny, that these kids come in there with a problem, but they go out with a worse problem. And they go back into our communities and they commit worse crimes because their mindset is different now. And so I guess my question is, what are we going to do right now? I mean, I know we're talking about going to the legislature, we're talking about going up and to the MDOC, but what are we going to do right now to address those concerns? Those kids should not be locked up there days at a time. So when I read the article, I was just astounded about the reports. So what I'm looking for is immediate help. If you can address that, please.
Absolutely. So HHBS continues to meet with Third Circuit and our jurists weekly, as well as Lansing, to have that conversation. We have conversations about long-term fixes, but we need fixes right now. As Judge Kenny indicated, we have 70 youth at JDF waiting for placement. They've been waiting in excess of 7 to 9 months. JDF and any detention facility, is about stabilization, not rehabilitation. We weren't designed for that. And so we also are exploring options with community partners to be able to come in and provide the therapeutic resources that we are not designed to provide immediately, so that we can address that issue right away. I don't see any immediate fixes with the state as far as placing the kids immediately. And so we're looking at what we can provide internally to provide the therapeutic services that we just can't provide.
But I guess it was mentioned about moving them into one of the old jails. Is that going to happen immediate?
So that plan is currently in discussion, and we are making headway and making moves to be able to make that happen immediately. Yes, within the next.
At that point, will they be allowed? Will they be able to come out of their rooms and take showers and all those other things that we kind of take for granted?
Yes, so we do have provisions in place now to be able to make those things happen on a daily basis. We have a team there, a new team, new deputy
But
directors.
they haven't been doing it.
We have been doing that, and it is documented. So one of the things we are doing is when that's happened, it is documented in our daily logs that it's documented, and it is provided to the state of Michigan for review. When we do move to our new facility or our Dickinson facility, the setup is vastly different than JDF, and it will allow more of the services to be provided in a contained unit instead of all over the building as JDF is now.
Well, you can imagine that as commissioners, we're getting calls about treating the youth inhumane. And that's something I've never received, but people are really concerned about the way those kids are being treated, as I am really concerned about it. So I'm hopeful, and I hope you hear it in my voice. We've got to do something drastic. We got to do it fast.
Absolutely. We all share those same concerns, and we are dealing with that on a daily basis. And we will continue to provide our updates to the commission as we move along.
Well, we'd appreciate it because we've got to respond to the public.
And with that, the next speaker is Commissioner Baker McCormick, who's the Chair of Health and Human Services. Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, I'm echoing Commissioner Coleman. Yeah, we have to do something now, especially in how we separate, the worst, juveniles from others. And I'm not really sure if raise the age has caused, the issues that we're having. I could see that including older young adults could potentially cause more havoc. So can you talk to what we're doing right now to possibly separate those youth and not just put each of them in a cell, but on a daily basis so that they can still socialize, but maybe put the other bad seeds, for lack of a better term, in a separate environment.
So Raise the Age certainly has provided challenges to us, as you can imagine. We currently, as of today, we have 48 youth at the juvenile detention facility who are Raise the Age youth between the ages of 17 and 18. Normally, those 48 youth would be across the street at the jail. And because of this new law, they're at JDF. And so that's part of the other pressure that we have is having to work with these juveniles. So we classify them and are able to move them, of course, with our staffing challenges as well. Add that to the mix, that poses some difficulty in being able to contain everyone on separate units. When we move to the new facility and our temporary facility, that will certainly address that, as I spoke of, because of the design of the facility. It's difficult now with the design of JDF and our staffing challenges.
So what you're saying right now, there's nothing that we can do to separate them, or?
We can, and they are classified separately upon admission. But again, with our staffing challenges, to be able to provide the necessary resources to that population that we've included in our MOU, we're challenged significantly with our staffing.
Okay. And our community partners, are you looking at resources from them to possibly help with this situation?
Yes, we've had numerous conversations with a mentorship group to come in and to provide some of those resources to those older individuals, as well as our partners, community partners, our CMOs, and our DWIN partners to plan how they are able to support us with the therapeutic services that are necessary.
And that would include mental health resources?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Marecki.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for recognizing me again. I'm having a little bit difficulty hearing you,
Me
so I don't
too.
know if you, it's like an
Yeah.
echo or
For some
something.
reason, I'm having a problem hearing her.
Yeah. But anyway, what about, when we started talking about the new Criminal Justice Center, and fast forward with COVID and tethers, all that type of thing, there may be available beds in the new jail. Is that a possibility that you're looking at? That we
Yes.
can use some of those beds?
Yes, we've had conversations regarding those beds and creating our own treatment program. So that way the kids wouldn't languish there and they'd be receiving those services to complete there or prior to transfer to another facility. So absolutely, that is on our priority agenda.
Because that could double the beds in the state. or
Absolutely.
Maybe more than that. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Kinlock.
Yes, thank you. I share pretty much the same sentiments as, some of the comments that have been raised by some of my colleagues. But over this weekend, when I got that call from residents, I called Commissioner Clark Coleman, and it was just devastating to just read some of the reporting associated with how the young people were being treated. We, once those children come into custody with the county, become the parents, become the individuals who are responsible for their safety and well-being. And I'm glad to hear that you all are here today, responding to those issues over there. But it has to be a priority, number one. I know the county is going through a lot of issues as far as being able to staff all up and down the county's operations. But we're talking about children. We're talking about children who already come from devastating circumstances, who now are under our custody. And we do not want them, as one of the commissioners said, we do not want them and should not be a part of making their life even worse. And so I just hope that we continue to have this conversation. I will actually ask the chair if I can have this as an issue on the criminal justice complex agenda to keep it at the forefront as far as knowing what's going on from far as a long-term conversations, because I know these are short-term and I appreciate these immediate responses, but we have to find a permanent solution, and the state has a role and a major responsibility. And however I can advocate, however we can advocate to find a permanent fix, because these are children, no matter what circumstances brought them into our care, these are children and we should not send them away with a worse and devastating experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. To that point, Commissioner Clark Coleman.
Yes, is there a way that we can work with our community, like vendors or some of the residents who, to house some of the juveniles who are not, and first of all, let me ask a question. Some of the juveniles are sent in not because they committed a crime, but because they perhaps, let's see, have mental problems, or in addition to that, they're minor occurrences that happen to them. Is there a way that we can use our vendors who house some of our provide programs to perhaps, because we do have some that house some of our inmates. So is there a way that you can work with some of them to perhaps maybe they can provide some for the juveniles who are less violent?
We certainly would appreciate those conversations, and we certainly can have those conversations with our probation level 1 kids, or kids who are appropriate for the community. I think what we're seeing now is that the youth that are at JDF and the youth that are those RTA kids, or the kids waiting for placement, are the kids that cannot be in the community. And so we certainly will have those conversations. We've been meeting with the court on a biweekly basis to identify those youth who can be released to the community. We had a big push to put kids out on tether and to put kids back in the community, and we just see them, coming back in. So,
but in addition to tether, maybe if they were put into some residential facilities that we already use, and many of them are not full. So if they're not violent children, maybe we can house them in some of our other residential facilities that we use for our programs through HHS. Okay.
Commissioner, if I might, in light of the growing population in the JDF, we've spoken with the leadership in our juvenile division of our court, and we've asked all the juvenile judges to take a second look at the bonds that have been set on all of the delinquency cases that are on their docket, to determine whether or not, on a second look, maybe someone could be back in the community, even with some sort of restriction. But I also want to call your attention to the fact that part of the MOU involves, part of what we're doing in the juvenile division is we are working in conjunction with Wayne State University in this, what's called this YAZI assessment. In other words, every time a delinquency petition is filed against a juvenile, there is an assessment done or sought to be done on a juvenile to determine whether or not whether there's strong family support or other support that could help the person being diverted from the juvenile justice system, or whether there are special needs that are there, mental health needs or other needs. And in utilizing this particular project, we have had a success even through the pandemic of something like 47%, I think, of the cases that have come in with delinquency petitions. That number, a little under 50%, have been diverted out of the juvenile justice system and they haven't gone through to adjudicate. These are the ones who are the nonviolent ones. These are the ones that I think you were talking about, the ones that we can take a greater chance on and provide the kind of resources out in the community. But as Ms. Fernandez indicated, people in the JDF right now, basically, especially the older ones, they're charged with things like carjacking and assault with intent to murder and
But
things
we
like that.
certainly don't
So-
want,
No.
we don't
no,
want
no, no.
those out there.
No, but I did
That's
want
for
to let
sure.
you know that there are assessments going on right now with the very intention of reaching that goal that you have talked about, taking youth out of the juvenile justice system and getting them and getting their family plugged into resources that will reduce recidivism, that we don't want to see them back.
Right, right. Like transitional housing. Perhaps they can be, some of them are just there just for behavior problems. But once they are incarcerated with others who are violent, kids are very impressionable. They end up adopting habits that are far worse than when they go in. So I just hope that we do all that we can as soon as we can to address that issue.
Thank you, Commissioner. And just for perspective and context, if you could provide us with a list of the youth who are in the JDF with the crimes that they've been accused of. Because I think the ones who are less offenders are already on tether or in programs. The ones who are in the JDF are the violent offenders. Those are the only ones that I think they're the only ones. So if you can get a list of maybe, X amount are accused of, because they haven't been tried, but accused of carjacking, X amount are accused with assault with deadly, just what those categories are and how many are there under those different categories, that'd be helpful. Commissioner Hados?
Thank you, Madam the Chair. I agree with all my colleagues on this issue, and such important issue. I be disappointed if we leave this meeting without starting some action to have the state to pay attention to that issue. So I really know Wayne County been the leader in the state in many other fronts. And this important one, I think we need to step up and start with something as a resolution, urge all the county in the state of Michigan to duplicate that and send it to the state with one voice. We can't take a slow negotiation on this problem and let it grow, and us and our young generation suffer from it. So I would recommend highly before we have this meeting to agree on having resolution by the administration and the commission under the leadership Warren Evan and Alicia Bell, and send it to the state and urge all the counties in the state of Michigan to do the same. I feel better if we leave this meeting knowing we starting something with the most agreeable thing. Everybody would agree on this. I can't see anybody would disagree on this effort. And I was amazed, 150 bad for the whole state. How can that be acceptable? So that's my thought. And I hope we'll do something today before we leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And hopefully our council heard that, and we'll work with administration for a resolution expressing our concern and a fix to the state to address that matter. And of course, I know all the other counties would certainly buy into that as well, because this is a statewide problem and this affects all counties in the state. Of course, Wayne County being the largest county, it affects us deeper than other counties. So we'll work on that resolution and have something hopefully by our next meeting next week.
Thank you.
Commissioner Vice Chair Palomero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With no further ado, I move approval of the MOU.
Support.
Support.
Moved and supported approval of the MOU. I think we've had our discussion. Please vote. Thank you so much. All right, next item, Madam Clerk.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Kenizic has also requested an excuse. We are moving to item number 3, requesting commission approval of a 4-year funding agreement between the Charter County of Wayne and the Third Circuit Court of Michigan.
Okay, and who is here to speak to this issue?
Morning, Madam Chair. Jim Jernigan, Assistant Corporation Counsel for the county. This is the continuation of an arrangement that the county has with the court, with the Third Circuit Court, to continue funding for the court for the next 4 years, starting October 1st and terminating at the end of September 2026. It is fairly consistent with prior agreements that the county has had with the court related to funding, and we would ask that this body approve it at this time.
Okay, if I could also have Chief Judge Kenny to speak to this item as well. And Judge, if you can speak to items that are new in this agreement.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly, the court is here to echo Mr. Jernigan's comments in terms of urging the acceptance of this 4-year agreement. It took a lot of thought, a lot of discussion, and certainly compromise on both sides. Over the past number of years, due to vacancies that the court was unable to fill, that there was a fund balance, a surplus that had been accumulated, and that we are using this surplus to, in fact, provide increased compensation for our staff. And it is consistent with an earlier study that we had that was commissioned for us and paid for by us. We asked the National Center for State Courts to do an assessment of how competitive or non-competitive we were with other courts, not only in the area, but also similar courts around the country. And the agreement enables us to hit the midpoint, if you will, in that salary range, if you will, so that we're not the lowest, we're not the highest, but it does put us in a position where we are going to be able to hopefully hire and also retain very good people. Also, a very, very critical portion of this agreement is the fact that with regards to this surplus, $2.3 million of that has been committed at the county's discretion as to whether or not they want to use it to provide parking for the new Criminal Justice Center or to be utilized for property and the building of a second courthouse, which is badly needed. As I know we have shared with the commission at earlier meetings, we are the only circuit court in the state of Michigan that does not have a family court that combines the juvenile court as well as the family division. And as we all know, the Lincoln Hall of Justice is, while we have many wonderful people working there every day, it's not a tourist site. It's in terrible condition. And so the need to replace the Lincoln Hall of Justice is certainly paramount. But this money, and also part of the agreement, is that the county and the court have agreed to work collaboratively with regards to working on finding a new location, working on someone who would be a consultant to help with that second courthouse, and to work on collaboratively with regards to funding as well. This is a new concept. It's also, I think, reflective of the spirit of collaboration and cooperation that the court and the county have had with regards to this particular agreement. This second courthouse is something that would bring the juvenile division, the family division, the friend of the court, and the civil division of our court, along with the probate court, all under one roof. To a great extent, it would empty KMAC from the court tower perspective, but it would put everybody under one roof, which not only would provide a benefit in terms of economies of scale, in terms of duplication of efforts would be reduced, but also, very importantly, it would make it easier and better in terms of service to the general public. You know, right now, somebody could have a family matter that involves both the family division and the juvenile division. And a party to that might have to go to 3 different buildings to get their case resolved. And that's certainly not serving our constituents better. And this, I think, is a giant step in the right direction. So that's sort of the 20,000-foot level view. We think that it is a big improvement, and we ask you to please approve the agreement.
Thank you, Chief Judge. I think what you spoke of with the family court being in one space makes all the sense in the world. I think you stated during our Ways and Means hearing that in the 70s, when you practiced at Lincoln, you thought it was old then. And here we are 50 years later, and it's still, so it's no question in our mind that we need to do something about Lincoln Hall of Justice, as well as putting all of the divisions under one roof, which makes so much sense for efficiency's sake and for our families who are living in Wayne County, to keep them from bouncing all across the downtown Detroit area to provide services for. So I'm glad that's in the agreement. I'm glad there's a cooperative talk between the courts and the administration. The commissioner, I can speak for this commissioner, is in full support of moving in that direction. So I look forward to those conversations moving forward to make that a reality in the not too distant future. Questions, Commissioner Vice Chair Pro Tem Baydoun?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too echo your sentiment, Madam Chair. I have many friends, judges who work out of that building. I was told about the condition. Judge Kenny and I had discussions as well. I am in full support of building a second courthouse where you have all of these under one roof, all these operations under one roof. So I'm looking forward to the plan coming forward where I can fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any discussion, Commissioner Kinlock?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to state hats off to Chief Judge Kenny and to Executive Warren Evans for making this a priority. It is something that's long overdue. Is an agreement. I know that we have this agreement today, but there were previous agreements in the past to make this happen. But you, your leadership, along with Executive Warren Evans, you all came together and made this happen and pushed forward to bring this into reality. So hats off to you all, and I absolutely support this. Thank you, Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Commissioner Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Judge, I appreciate you being here, and I too am supportive of the other court. And this agreement, and I guess what I'm looking for is just a commitment by the county to work with the court for the building and discussion of that new court building. Am I correct?
The chair, yes, that is correct. In fact, there are even structures in the agreement itself that require the parties to cooperate and collaborate and hold meetings and move this forward.
So we'll essentially be going through the same process with this court as we did with the current CJC that's under construction, almost completed now.
I would say substantially so, yes.
The one, Madam Chair, the one thing that I do have a concern about is I support this, getting this underway and trying to reach some agreement on how we can build a new court. I am concerned about the continued vacating of KMAC when we're responsible to pay partial cost, even if it's unused. We're still, the county's still. So that I think even points to the need for a very deep dive into what's going to happen with those vacancies in the KMAC building and what we're going to do about that. We've just approved moving out the clerk's offices over there over to 400 Monroe. So we're taking something we were already paying for, and now we're adding another bill on. And I mean, it was necessary, I believe, to do that. And I supported that. But I think we're continuing to build increased cost to the county, build it in by vacating the KMAC building. So we need to really get down to this is not the, certainly not the judge's problem, not the court's problem, but it is something that we have to, I think, focus on that much greater. But that's all I have right now.
Thank you, Commissioner. You're absolutely right. And I think I do have you listed on my new task force for the buildings. So that'll be a great conversation to take a deeper dive into that, because we have to take a holistic approach of what we're doing with all of our spaces throughout the county. Commissioner Clark Coleman, then Commissioner Killeen.
Yes, you know, when I became a commissioner 12 years ago, we approved at that time a new building. Is this the same? Is this the same building that well, it was just approved just before I started. A new court building. Is this the same one?
I would say no. I think that in the early agreement back when you came on the commission, I think the expectation was that there would be a new courthouse that would bring everybody under one roof, except Frank Murphy was going to be renovated. And I think that's what was a difference. I think one of the other differences is that in this particular agreement, there are timelines put in here. There were none in the previous one. So I think maybe our general counsel, Richard Lynch, I think has some greater information on that, Commissioner. So I'll defer to the expert. How's that?
Good morning, Commissioner.
Morning.
Richard Lynch, appearing for the court. And in the initial agreement that was entered into by the parties following the lawsuit, the parties had agreed to the concept of a 1 or a 2 courthouse solution that was going to be implemented within the initial term of that agreement. And that was, as I recall, a 5-year agreement. Unfortunately, there were a number of financial issues that came into play and some practical issues that came into play that did not allow that to come into fruition. So in 2015, the county and the court entered into a second agreement, and they were looking specifically at a new criminal courthouse. And in the term of that agreement, and just finishing into the beginning of the next agreement, we will have that new criminal courthouse entered into. We learned our lessons from the first agreement going through the second agreement, and that is why we put all of the structures into place to make sure we could hammer out the details and get a process in place, as opposed to speaking rather amorphously and saying a new courthouse would be nice, but we don't know how to do it. So we continue to learn from this process. The court and the county continue to work diligently with each other to put these types of solutions into place. But you are correct, beginning with the 2010 agreement, there was a conversation about a 1 or 2 courthouse solution. but practical matters prevented that from occurring until today's date.
And just to make it clear, I am thoroughly supportive of this.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Colleen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we can tell from this conversation, discussions about this have been going on for a long time to try to get a solution to this. 3 different buildings, all of that, and then CJC comes in. But what I'm not aware of is a report to the commission, some kind of regular reporting on how progress is being made on this. A lot of complex issues here. If we're able to resolve those and come up with something on this, the commission is going to have to appropriate the money in order to do that. I think it would behoove us for the commission to be educated ahead of time, rather than, let's say, oh, we get something on a Friday afternoon to vote on a Tuesday, and commissioners have to start at 0 on a Friday to grasp all the issues around this in order to have a Tuesday vote. And just in terms of good governance, it seems to me we would want to get some sort of regular updates through the appropriate standing committee as to how the discussions are, what the issues are, where the hangups are. Because I think everybody in the room that's speaking here, everybody in the room agrees we need to get something done here. But given the constriction of cash that the county has, it's going to be difficult. So I would suggest, Madam Chair, because I'm not aware that we've had reporting from this working group to the commission in terms of what the issues are, what the hangups are, that if we could get, the commission could get updates, regular updates through an appropriate standing committee. I think it would actually be helpful in the long run, because you're going to need all the commissioners' opinions as well as this moves forward, since we will have the final vote on it. So that would be my suggestion, Madam Chair, that we have a standing committee to have this on their agenda and get regular updates and can track this and give feedback, because it is so vital to get this done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Discussions on this item will go to government ops as they progress through with the administration and the court. Any further questions on this item? Commissioner Scott?
Thank you. You know, this has been long overdue, so I am hopeful that we're going to get this done and make it a priority. This was, you know, the other 2 counties, they already have family courts and had some time ago. This was passed many years ago in Lansing for this family court. So I am looking forward to working with you on it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, Commissioner Vice Chair Pro Tem Baidoon.
Madam Chair, I will make a motion to approve item number 3.
Moved and supported to approve the agreement with the Wayne County and Third Circuit Court from October 1, 2022 to September 30th, 2026. No further discussion, please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Third Circuit Court. Thank you, Chief Judge. All right, next item, Madam Clerk.
We are returning to item number 1 on page 2 of the agenda, requesting commission approval of amendment number 1 to a 3-year comparable source professional services contract with a 1-year option to renew between the Charter County of Wayne and Source Blue, not to exceed $11 million to procure additional furniture, fixtures, and equipment for the CJC.
Okay, we have a familiar face before us.
Okay, good morning, everyone. To the chair, Aaron Wagner, Deputy Chief Financial Officer. I have returned.
You have returned. Well, the fan club, it seems. Okay. Go ahead, Aaron.
But before you is an amendment to the Source Blue contract. Earlier this year, we had engaged in an agreement with Source Blue to assist with the purchase of FF&E furnitures, fixtures for the CJC. Due to current procurement staffing issues, the timeline that this building will be opening, there was discussion to add additional FF&E items to the Source Blue contract to ensure that we are able to open this building once it is turned over to us by ROC. And so what we bring before you is an additional $11 million to contemplate the bulk of the FF&E for the complex.
Okay, so another $11 million for the FF&E. My concern, and it was mentioned in our analysis, is just making sure that this is the largest construction project that we've embarked upon. And I think it was important that all of us discuss that we make sure that it's as inclusive as possible when it comes to veteran-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, the like. With them doing the work of sourcing out, going out for bids for this, how do we ensure that we're making that those categories of businesses are participating in this process?
Yes, so all bid packages are reviewed both by Tori, Inez Edwards, and myself prior to being put out. In addition, we have a pre-qualified list of local suppliers that are provided courtesy notices for this that we do give to Source Blue. In addition, we've asked for them to give us links so we can post all of the solicitations on the Wayne County website, in addition to pushing it out, through our own resources. So Tori and I have been working very closely with Source Blue to make sure that we are meeting those objectives. And they do understand that it is a county priority that local businesses, veteran-owned businesses, disadvantaged businesses, minority businesses are included in not only receiving the solicitations, but also are valued when those solicitations do come back.
So I'd like to request that we receive a report monthly of those businesses that get those that work. And that can be forwarded to all the commissioners, especially to the CJC committee for further discussion. But I would like all commissioners to see who's getting that business and how much they're getting awarded.
Certainly.
Questions, Commissioner Baker McCormick, then Commissioner Marecki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too am interested in making sure that disadvantaged businesses participate. And in the list that that Commissioner Bell just related to, Chair Bell, if you can specify if, what category they're in, if they're veteran-owned, women-owned, and not just a list, and because I think I've asked for that before. I think it's important that we invest in and try to support all of our businesses in Wayne County, but in particular those that have a difficult time contracting for whatever reasons. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Marecki?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the commission is not going to see these contracts that are coming through from Blue Source, but in this discussion we're having now, on the flip side, I mean, it's great we're looking at minority companies in Wayne County. How can I assure my constituents that we're spending their tax dollars most efficiently, not just looking at companies, but we're getting the best price of the product?
So, Source Blue, this is their wheelhouse. Initially when the agreement was structured, Source Blue was going to be the company providing the same services for ROC back when ROC was actually going to be provide those. So they are a global company. They have a global network. And so this is, their bread and butter. And one of the reasons, or the reason why we went with them, is because they're experts in the field. They're very, very well versed with this project. They have a very strong working relationship with APJOK. So from a design perspective, they're able to get those answers as quickly as possible and make sure that, not only are we getting the best price for the products, but those products are what were designed and to be put into the structure.
Okay, so who's going to, is there going to be any oversight from your department with these prices and making sure?
So when the bid packages come through, they do send the bid packages over for review by the administration. Myself, Tori, Corporation Counsel, outside counsel, we all review with the internal stakeholders as well as with CGL, which is our building advocate, to make sure that they meet the spec on what it is that they're presenting, but also too that those price points are the most competitive.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the addition to the Source Blue? Commissioner Kleen.
Was that me, Madam Chair?
Commissioner Kleen, yes.
Thank you. It's so quiet. It's so quiet. It really is hard to hear people in here. Very much so. So this is an amendment to the original $11 million contract.
Mm-hmm.
The original $11 million contract, how much the purchases made under that, were they in conformance with our procurement ordinance? Any of those come to the commission or anything?
So much like this amendment, the commission is approving the allocation of the $11 million.
Right.
We have provided our procurement ordinance as far as what our rules are for purchasing. They are an outside firm, so they are not beholden to the same rules and regulations if it were to be purchased through the procurement division of MMB. However, again, Tori and I work very, very closely. We have weekly meetings with Source Blue to go over the packages, to review the bid documents that are going out, to make sure that they are as closely aligned with what we want to see as possible.
And on that original 11 million, is any reports to the commission on how that is going? Any disagreements you would have, or any, do you have the authority to say, no, we're not going to make this specific purchase as you look at all of the things that are being done? Can the county step in and say, no, Source Blue, that doesn't conform to our procurement ordinance, so we're not going to allow it?
So they are not authorized to purchase without our authorization. So if we have or find deficiencies in what is presented and push it back to them, they have to make those changes.
And has there been any reports to the commission? Because my job in the end is oversight of the public dollars. And if we're kind of outside of the procurement ordinance and we have a system in-house that we're being assured, oh yeah, we're conforming to the procurement ordinance in these purchases with Source Blue, then I want to see the evidence of that, right?
At this point, we are still working through the first batch of solicitations that went out, so no decisions have been made yet. But once we do get to that point, certainly we can provide information as to what it is, what the spec is, and what we're looking to allocate or approve upon.
And I'm very uncomfortable, Madam Chair, of at some level, no offense, that we're kind of issuing a line of credit for 11 million. We're also facing deadlines. And so things are going to happen very quickly with these purchases. And it just, I'm not in the mood to extend another 11 million for purchases outside of our procurement ordinance. that it just makes me uncomfortable to do that. And especially given that we're driving towards a finish line here very soon. And there's lots of things that need to get done. I don't want to, and I'll state it this way, I don't want to trash the rules just to get it done and then find out later, oopsie. So I'm not wild about this amendment to that. I wasn't wild about the first one. And now that we want to double that, I'm less wild about it even there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, this was the plan originally to do this second amendment. But it came upon due to the staffing or lack thereof and the ability to meet the deadlines to get this project completed on time and on budget. Is that correct, Mr. Wagner?
That is correct.
So this unfortunately is before us because of the situation and of where we find ourselves, because the timeline is still to have everything in by March, as far as fixtures and the building completed, and to move in by the fall of next year. And we're already at the fall of this year. This is something that, to make sure that we are spending our resources properly, to make sure that we're going to get this delivered in a timely manner. This was something that the administration wanted to bring to us for consideration. Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick point of clarification, maybe I missed it. As far as the quality of the fixtures and equipment and furnishings, is there any type of warranty guarantee that we get once
Yes.
we purchase those items and, I mean, they fall apart?
Yeah, so there's kind of two points on that. So what has been presented so far does have manufacturer warranties against defect, but also to the installation would also have a warranty involved with it as well.
Thank you.
And in the reports that we send through, we'll make sure to identify those.
And do we or someone on our team or from the county actually inspects or looks at any of the
Yes,
items?
they've been fully vetted through. Samples have been provided, so it's, you know, the end users have had a say in this and in speccing it out with HOK during the design process, and then again during the solicitation. That has also been part of the process.
And then the last question, I assume that we worked with like the sheriff's department and prosecutor's office
yes.
to make sure that all of that equipment that we're purchasing is needed, or making sure that they have whatever their needs are met.
Yes, so the spec themselves comes from the design firm that built the building. And so in, you know, the last couple of years, as they've gone through and spec'd out the offices and the different floors of the building, you know, the courts have had a say in prosecutor's office, sheriff's office, HHVS for the areas that they've got buildings. So any county department that is involved or will be residing in this building has had a say in the design.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Wagner, I assume since this is all FF&E, furniture, fixtures and equipment, that there's no cost sharing with ROC, correct?
So the allocation from that, you know, I can't remember which amendment it was in particular, but you know, ROC had shifted back part of the initial FF&E piece. Then there was a chunk of the FF&E money that was to be paid by the county. And so this $11 million represents both the money that was shifted over by ROC as well as money that you know was FF&E budgeted for this project.
And has there been a good review of the properties or the FF&E that we currently have and facilities that are going to be moving into this location to see what's usable?
Yes, so there has been a directive. CGL has been working with the transition teams to go on site to basically put our existing equipment into 3 buckets. One is, yes, we're going to keep it, it's moving over. 2 is we're going to keep it, we're going to reallocate it somewhere else through the county. And the 3rd is it's either going to be sold off at auction or it's beyond life and we're going to have to dispose of it.
And I, Madam Chair, I too have the same concerns that Commissioner Colleen had said, had stated that it just seems as though the commission is losing more and more input into some of these expenditures and not going to, and I know Mr. Wagner said he can let us know what those numbers are, but I didn't hear he will. But
I will.
You will?
Yes.
Okay. And, but I still, it sounds like it's after the fact, rather than us being advised as to what this $11 million includes. So that, for that reason, I can't support it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kinlock.
Approval.
Been moved and supported. Discussion, Commissioner Marecki.
Thank you. Just an FYI, the clerk's office was in front of us last week and they need a lot of furniture.
Understood.
Further discussion has been moved by Commissioner Kinlock, supported by Commissioner Haydus. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much. All right. Is everyone good, or do you need a 5-minute recess? All right, we'll keep going. Madam Clerk, next item.
We are returning to page 3 of the agenda, item number 4, requesting commission approval of a 5-year comparable source medical examiner's office operating agreement between the Charter County of Wayne and Wayne State University, not to exceed $71,520,411 to operate the medical examiner's office.
I'm sorry, Ms. Allen, you got up before I could tell you where to sit. I tried to text you. Do you mind sitting? Can you move over to where David Kniezek sits, please? So we have a better view of you and we can hear you better. And if gentlemen can please help her with all her items. You want to keep her in the chair and roll her over there? I know, but she wanted to be here for this one. Thank you, ma'am. Just to have a better.
Madam Chair, I move hazard pay for Janelle.
Okay, thank you, sir. Oh, okay. All right, very good. That's so we can have a better view and we can hopefully hear you better from that seat. Okay, thank you so much. So here we are, 5 years later from the U of M medical examiners contract. That contract is set to expire at the end of the month. Ms. Janelle Allen has been working very, very diligently as her team, Corp Counsel, HHS, very diligently over the last few months to bring us something that is better than what we had previous on how to operate and run the medical examiner's office. So let me first just thank Ms. Allen for her months of day in and day out consultation with Wayne State, consultation throughout other members of the administrative staff, consultation with me over many weekends and evenings and days to get something before us that, again, we believe is better than what we had before and provide the citizens of Wayne County the best in services as they should receive at the medical examiner's office. office. So with that, I will turn the floor over to Ms. Allen and those who she would like to call to speak on her behalf. And we do have a slide presentation. Maybe we can get that teed up as she does her introduction. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Janelle Allen, Chief Operating Officer with the County Executive's Office. And first, I do thank you all for accommodating my need to sit during this presentation. But joining me this morning are the Health, Human and Veteran Services Director, Melita Jordan, Assistant County Executive, Brian Manning, as well as representatives with our partner, Wayne State University, Dr. Wow Sacker, who is the Dean of the Medical School, as well as Thane Peterson, who is the Vice Dean of Finance and Administration for the Medical School. And they will all be presenting during this. We have a lot of information to present, but we will try to be very expedient because we know there are probably several questions. And in this presentation, I'll just give a brief background because we've talked a lot about the background and the history of the Medical Examiner's Office. If you could please, next slide, please. As well as hit on some key highlights in the agreement, focusing in particular on how staffing and internal operations will be significantly enhanced. We'll then also talk a lot about the budget. We know that there are a lot of questions, I'm sure, and concerns about that there is a price tag for enhancing our operations, as well as we'll talk about then enhanced oversight and reporting. So briefly, just regard to by way of background, that the county actually operated with their internally the Medical Examiner's Office prior to 2011. And the first contract with the University of Michigan started in 2011. At that time, it was just a contract for the forensic pathologists, the doctors. All of the other staff, there are a lot of different components, investigators, lab, autopsy attendants, they still remained as Wayne County employees. Starting in 2014 is when the entire operation was contracted out with the University of Michigan. And since that time, they have operated all facets of the office. That contract expires actually at the end of this week. And so earlier this year, University of Michigan notified the county that they would not be pursuing another contract. At that same time, Wayne State expressed strong interest in working with the county to operate the medical examiner's office. And they actually submitted a formal proposal. After much deliberation, discussions, negotiation, that resulted in the partnership agreement where that was presented to this body and approved early in July. And we did there, we stressed about the difference between, next slide, please. With regard to having a partnership than just a transactional relationship that the county shared with the University of Michigan. And while we know there have been a number of issues evolving from the office, there were some accomplishments that occurred during the last decade. And one in particular was accreditation, which is very important when you're running such a large, multifaceted, very complicated urban medical examiner's office. But as we know, there have been a number of concerns and issues. And so in this agreement that we're presenting to you today, that we are really focused on how do we move forward? How do we enhance and get to where we need to be? In the partnership agreement, you may recall that was the first of what we envisioned to be two agreements with the university. The partnership was to memorialize really our mutual commitment to the success of this office. And I compare that to the relationship that the county has had with the University of Michigan, which is really more of a transactional contractual relationship. It's just like I say, picture a business. When you're subcontracting with vendors to provide supplies or let's say cleaning services, that's very different than a partner who has investment ownership in the success of the business. And this is something we broached with Wayne State early on, and they agreed in unison that this is a partnership. This is not a transactional contractual relationship. And so we memorialized that in the partnership agreement. The agreement before you today is the operating agreement. This is where we get into the nitty-gritty details about the multifaceted of running the office. Next slide, please. But in running the office, as far as operating under partnership agreement, we did have some key points in that agreement. One is that the county would be responsible for the operating costs, but also does highlight Wayne State's investments, and we will address that, and Dr. Sacker will address that later during this presentation. We also talked about that Wayne State will be the employer of the staff, with the potential exception of the medical examiner and the deputy medical examiner. And I would tell you that after we put a lot of thought in the county, very strenuously considered employing the medical examiner. And that was in part because that while we have had these concerns and issues with our current contract, the county really was not as engaged as we believe in hindsight that the county needs to be. And so in giving considerable thought that should we employ the medical examiner, we thought that would be one way of being very engaged. However, after thorough consideration and during deliberations, we realized that while we were trying to address one issue, that could potentially cause other issues. And so we ultimately agreed and decided with Wayne State that they would employ the medical examiner. And this is primarily because, one, we wanted to ensure that Wayne State has full accountability to operate the office. We also were concerned about any potential confusion about respective responsibilities and accountability. If you have a medical examiner employed by the county and then a deputy and everyone else employed by Wayne State, there could be some potential conflicts of nothing but confusion by staff within the actual office. We certainly didn't want to address one issue and create something even larger. So we ultimately agreed that the medical examiner and the deputy will be employed by Wayne State. But as we get later in the discussion, you'll see that there's still a lot of executive engagement at our governance level to ensure that the county will still be very engaged, as well as Wayne State at their executive level. Another reason we thought it was best for Wayne State to employ the medical examiner is that we do want, there's going to be a forensic pathologist fellowship program. That is one of the key ways of how we're going to attract and retain talent. A number of our current pathologists actually went through a fellowship program, and all you typically do. And while the University of Michigan has a fellowship program now, Wayne State, under our agreement, will be establishing their own. And we need every physician in the office to be able to participate in that program. So we need our medical examiner to be able to have a faculty appointment with Wayne State University. And we realized for various reasons that it is best then that that person would be employed by Wayne State as well. We do plan to conduct a national search now. I believe everyone does know that our current medical examiner submitted his resignation that will be effective at the start of this contract, October 1st. And so in the interim, the deputy by law, the deputy then functions as the medical examiner, serves in that role. But so our deputy medical examiner, who actually got appointed by University of Michigan, is Dr. Lachman Sung. Dr. Sung has been with the office for pretty much his career, I believe almost close to 20 years. So he will be serving as the interim medical examiner. And unfortunately, he cannot be here today, but he'll be serving in that role while we conduct a national search. Next, we'd like to get right now into the key terms of the agreement, and Melita Jordan will be addressing these points.
Good morning. My name is Melita Jordan. I'm the Director for the Department of Health and Human Services. Once again, I'd like to thank you very much for having me here this morning to address this esteemed body, and I will move forward very quickly to discuss what you see currently on this particular slide is, again, the MEO functions. This slide really shows the functions and the essential support services for the MEO's office. The 5 areas that you notice that have an asterisk there are not supported in-house by Wayne State University. Therefore, these particular services will be subcontracted to other vendors and thus will incur some additional costs. So I wanted to bring that to your attention as you are focusing and looking at that in terms of those services and core functions. Next slide, please. The essential support functions. The operating agreement embodies the commitment of Wayne County and Wayne State University's partnership in all aspects of the programming, the operations, and the physical assets of the county, with the educational, the research, and the community outreach access of Wayne State University. Incorporating also the social work services and grief counseling services for families. Public and community engagement will help strengthen our efforts collaboratively in building intergovernmental capacity for Wayne County. Next slide, please. I want to speak to the name. It's called the National Association of Medical Examiners. NAME is the National Professional Organization for Physician Medical Examiners. NAME seeks to promote excellence in the day-to-day operations of the medical examiner's office and also investigating the individual cases, as well as developing and promulgating the forensic autopsy standards. NAME fosters leadership, collaboration, promoting the best practice and excellence in forensic medicine. Wayne State University and Wayne County will collaboratively implement a strategy early on in this operating agreement to support the immediate steps to maintain provisional status with a goal to achieve full accreditation for the medical examiner's office. Next slide, please.
Would like to mention here that currently, as I said, under the University of Michigan agreement, the office was able to attain accreditation. This was several years ago. However, once we've been experienced this severe shortage of forensic pathologists countrywide, that we have actually been in provisional status because of the staffing, as well as to some degree, even the facility. And so that's why we say that we want to make sure we can at least maintain provisional, but actually get back to full accreditation.
Thank you for adding that, Janelle. The main objectives for the NAME standards for accreditation is for an adequate medical legal system that determines staffing and caseloads for each forensic pathologist, and establishing benchmarks for death reports, turnaround times. It also adheres to the ethical, objective, and impartial services. And equally important, though, is the core values of the organization. And those core values are in line with not only this administration, but it's also in line with Wayne State University as well, in terms of treating decedents and their survivors with dignity and respect. As you know, we had received several and many complaints regarding the handling of decedents, as well as oftentimes a lack of response for families and to families in such a way that created some critical concerns. We certainly will be, again, moving forward and addressing these standards, but more importantly is to recognize that the dignity and the respect of survivors and their families is extremely important. And that is one of the highest priorities of this administration, and is one of the highest priorities for us to work towards to make sure that we can reestablish the trust with the residents and the families in Wayne County. Accreditation by name is actually an honor and a significant achievement for any medical examiner's office in this country. It really signifies to everyone, and particularly to the public, that the office is really performing at its highest level of competence and providing the public service that it is required and set to do. Next slide, please. Staffing enhancements. I want to just speak briefly in terms of this includes the staffing that you see there, really includes the retention of the University of Michigan forensic pathologist that was transitioned over with Wayne State University. And we're very proud that we were able to retain current pathologists, and then adding new pathologists. With this transition, Wayne State University has been able to bring on a new pathologist also, and we will be certainly moving forward in terms of recruiting others. As Janelle just previously mentioned, Wayne State University is establishing their own forensic pathology fellowship program. And this arrangement have been made thus far as with a faculty release agreement for the first year of operating this agreement with the University of Michigan, as we continue and as Wayne State continues to build upon getting the prerequisites needed to develop a fellowship program. And the purpose of that is to continue to grow and to recruit and to retain the fellowships pathologists that will stay here within our community, so that we can build the kind of capacity that's needed for this particular county. Next slide, please. So as you saw from the previous slide, that we have added additional staff to the complement of additional 14 staff, but this is also other staff positions other than the pathologists that have been brought on, but also a chief operating officer, social worker that I had previously mentioned in terms of the work that will be done to provide grieving services for families. And so as we continue to move on, medical investigators have been added also to the complement, in addition to additional administrative staff. Again, that will help with not only the customer service, but also the timeliness of responding to not only concerns, but also providing the public service that's needed in responding to all of the inquiries that come into a medical examiner's office.
Clarify, these are additional positions in the budget. They haven't all been filled yet. Because I do know that Wayne State is currently recruiting for the chief operating officer and for some of these others, but to just show how this will be built up over time. And we certainly will be working expediently with Wayne State to get these positions filled, but they all are not filled yet.
Next slide, please. In terms of also increasing the staffing enhancement, I want to talk a little bit about the market salary adjustment. As you know, that this budget includes a 3% annual increase for staff positions and approximately a 3% increase for recruitment and retention that we just spoke about moments ago. These compensation adjustments were actually warranted to obtain a closer parity with local market compensation rates for positions that are unique in operating a medical examiner's office. In addition, in terms of retaining qualified talent, will certainly enable us to potentially not lose any staff that was currently employed at the University of Michigan. So we were able to bring staff on and then add additional staff. And as Janelle said, we haven't filled all the positions as of yet, but we certainly will be doing so in the very near future so that we can have a adequate complements to provide the services that's necessary for the residents here in Wayne County.
Our understanding, all staff who are currently employed by U of M were made offers and accepted. There was one person who is an administrative manager. She had told us early on that she actually got a promotion within U of M system. She would have been leaving the MEO's office anyway. She's the only one who did not, but otherwise all the staff who are currently employed did accept their offer.
Next slide, please. I want to move to a number of enhancements, operational enhancements that we'll be bringing over. So I think one of the really great things about a university is they often have the state-of-the-art equipment as well as the state-of-the-art IT systems. And Wayne State is bringing a state-of-the-art call center to this agreement to help improve customer service by streamlining the handling of all calls, regardless of the amount and the volume, in terms of being able to be responsive to the survivors of decedents, as well as the general public. They will be able to be easily reached. We know that from our previous audit that we had many challenges that was noted about one, not only the lagging in phone times with people answering, but more importantly, phones not being answered at all. This particular system has a platform that will triage calls. Also, it will manage to have the agents actually triage the calls to the appropriate persons and as well be able to see how long within a queue that a phone call has been there. But more importantly, it will immediately be able to be responsive to that call and also log that information with a tracking system as well. And so we're really excited about the management of the call system, as well as the information will be answered in a timely manner. And there will be a tracking system that will allow us to look at that quality assurance in terms of, the length of time, how many calls have come in, and then how those calls are triaged and handled. So the call technicians will be able to provide that information. Along with the unclaimed dashboards, we will continue at the Wayne County to provide the unclaimed bodies dashboard will be managed here by the Wayne County staff. However, Wayne State University will be providing the additional data that comes from our case management system so that we have up-to-date data at all times. Again, allowing the public to have an interface, being able to go on our website, to be able to also assist them in being able to identify if there is a loved one that that have either been missing in terms of a deceased and or looking to be able to identify a body. That information will be housed on our website with the support of Wayne State University providing us on-site updates with that. Next slide, please. Also, some of those internal operations services that will be provided will be the Comprehensive Customer Relationship Management System. It's called CRM. This particular system will serve as the customer service desk. The platform will automatically, as I said a few moments ago, it will identify callers as well as record the contact information, and it creates a ticket. And this particular ticket will be updated in order to better serve customers, meaning that you may have called a company and you know how it may ask you to, it recognizes your voice because when you initially call, it asks you your name and it didn't ask you to repeat a few words and it captures your voice. Well, this system and platform will be able to do the same thing so that if you've previously called and had a concern or a question, you can then, if you called back, that voice, your voice would be captured and to be able to link the previous call to that information so that when that receptionist or that person answers, you're able then to move forward with whatever that follow-up was. The CRM system, will integrate with the call center system also and able to track the delivery of services, the resolution of the issues, as well as the time that it takes to do both. And so again, state-of-the-art IT system that will really facilitate and address, again, several of the issues that was identified as a potentially significant finding within our audit, but these enhancements also are state-of-the-art and will be something that will definitely improve not only the customer service, but also the operational services in terms of capturing information and data as well. Next slide, please. Wayne State also will implement an additional multi-integrated system of software platforms along with that case management system where all the data for our decedents is stored in that particular system. There will be and you'll see in a few moments that there is a connectivity. And one of the things that usually happens when you collect data and or have different systems, they often don't talk to one another. But in this particular situation, that the platforms as well as the integration takes place. And so therefore the case management system, the call system, as well as you'll see in a moment, our cash management system, all these particular enhancements are connected in terms of being able to integrate, provide information, as well as provide us with clear data that will help us. And one of the things that we also asked for in terms of looking at the case management system where it keeps all that information, one of the findings, of course, with the audit was the fact that there were some open fields, meaning that all fields were not filled in, which is critical information that's needed in terms of making sure that a decedent, their clothing, the time in which they arrived, that every single field is there because that information is very important in terms of an investigation. But with that being said, one of the things that this platform will do also is that you won't be able to leave a field blank. And so therefore, if it requires information or if it had information that's not applicable, it will actually be able to say not applicable. So therefore you won't be able, or we won't be able as operators of the system to leave those things blank. And so that again, when another audit occurs, you will not find that to be a finding or a problem because we will have captured all of those particular nuances. And so I think, again, a very good area in terms of that cash management system, which is a very large system that handles all of this type of information. Next slide, please. In addition to that, there will be monthly audits as well, not only with our cash receipts management system, which again, as you know, one of the things that came up also during the time that we had our audit was about the fact that we did not have, and I think it's across the county actually, is that we don't have an electronic cash system where that the public can actually pay online for services. Most individuals would either have to have a check, and or they would have to mail the check into us, or they have to go to the office themselves to pay by cash. So one of the things that we're trying to do is become like a lot of other businesses in terms that we need to be, it can be cashless by using automated services to be able to pay, so that we are developing an online payment form so that the fees that are collected for death certificates or cremation permits, that can actually be done online. But more importantly, it also helps with cash receipts so that there is an electronic way to be able to look at those fees that are being paid, that it will help with the system in terms of collecting that and controlling, and then providing that information to you in terms of real time. So again, those computer areas are areas that I think with the CRM system will again enhance the not only cash receipts, but also it's connected to that database that we have as well as it relates to the various systems. Next slide, please. And this is a depiction or a graphic of the system that I was just speaking of. As you can see, the database for the unclaimed bodies, along with the tracking system for the customer service management system is there, the cash center, call center, and also the cash management system. And again, in terms of our cash receipts management. So they're all connected. So it is not that you need a different level of software and or different platform. The platform is integrated. And I think that is a major plus in terms of it providing real-time information, but more importantly, it provides data that help us in the management on the day-to-day basis of operations of the MEO's office, which a lot of that we didn't have before. Next slide, please. So then again, these policies, operational enhancement for our policies will help us be able to track the completion of death certificates, in addition of the issuance of cremation permits, and an identification of unidentified bodies in terms of how long. One, how long does it take to complete the death certificates and be able to not only complete them, but then issue them. Again, that has been another one of the areas that there were a tremendous amount of concern about, is that the death certificates are either late, people didn't get them, you got to constantly call. I know a number of you have reached out to me several times for me to intervene in terms of being able to get a death certificate for one of your residents or constituent. And so therefore, that will be something that, again, within the system, is able to tell again when it was done, as well as to get that information out. And so I think that the timeliness of all of this will be within the timeframes that we talked about in terms of addressing the audit report as well. The other good thing is that it does provide tracking metrics as well. And so those metrics is important in terms of not only improving performance, but more importantly is to meet the standards and the accreditation for NAME. And so again, there is a underlying reason for all of this in terms of this working together, in terms of making sure we're more efficient as well as being completed. Next slide, please. So again, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of a number of the significant findings that were noted in the audit, This system, the operational enhancements that I just spoke about, addresses many of those areas. As I said, cash management as well as the case management system in the call center addresses more than some of the issues that was raised. And so wanted to bring that to your attention as well about our policies, the procedures are all in line and making sure that there is more efficiencies as well as opportunities with this new enhancement and IT work that is being done and installed is going to help us move forward and reduce the number of issues, complaints, and concerns for the families and for the county, as well as for all of you and individuals that your constituents have been concerned about.
I'd also like to mention that we recognize how significant and important this audit, the audit and the corrective action plan is for our operations. So there's a specific section in the scope of services where Wayne State, clearly they are inheriting and walking into this. They have nothing to do with the issues that were pre-existing, but there's actually a commitment to work diligently on implementing the corrective action plan. There's actually a link in the document that takes us to the audit report to just recognizing we understand how important that is. And a lot of this is tied into addressing the findings.
Next slide. And I'm going to ask Dr. Saker.
Would you return to the previous slide? Yep, right there. Thank you.
I think it's still good morning. It's an honor and indeed a pleasure to appear before you again to talk a little bit more about the Wayne State investment and contributions to this effort. Madam Chair, allow me before I start that to echo what you said, because I believe you have in Janelle Allen and Melita Jordan and Brian Mannings, an incredible team. I have negotiated many contracts in my days. I have to attest to all of you that it's rare to find a talented team that's so watchful for the county's interest in every detail. And I can attest to that in a totally neutral way, actually, because on occasions they were foes, as you know, as two sides of a contract. So with that said, the last thing that Janelle mentioned, we fully realize that we are not stepping into this on the very best ideal circumstances. There are concerns known to all of you. But I think over the last 6 months, every considerations to the issues that were raised by name, by the Auditor General, and by the responses that Melita offered to these, and all the enhancements that are there, I believe when we step in, we will start on day one addressing all the issues from before, while keeping an eye on making sure that as we move forward, everything is in as good of a shape as it can be towards a very accelerated timeline to really achieve where we want to be. So having said that, I think the number one contribution of the university is to own the operation in the widest sense of the word. So everything that has to do with implementing the procedures and policies and accountabilities to make sure that what is running within the office is up to the best standards. And I think the newer element, in addition to the scope of the partnership, the newer element in what we work with the county is the two parties are convinced that we need to stay in lockstep with respect to these procedures and how the monitoring and improvement of these procedures is going on very regular and very frequent basis, at least in the beginning. So at the center of this circle is the development of the workforces. As you learned, we are not only employing the medical examiners, but really everyone who is in the office. And there is a need to bring the skills and the training of all the constituencies to the best national standards. There are courses, training seminars, workshops that can be as useful for the investigators, the pathologist assistants, as much as they are for the physician medical examiners. On top of that, we also bring the ability to utilize the medical examiner's data under a very strict protocols with thorough review by Wayne State University and equally so by Wayne County to look at the record and the post-mortem data to extrapolate certain public health prevalence issues down to the zip code, probably, with respect to undetected cancers, early diabetes, prevalence of hypertension, and mirror these to what we know about the prevalence of these issues. Several academic partnerships with medical examiners in large urban areas are doing this already. As we develop through this, we are going to bring the partnership of another prominent school in the university, the Eugene Applebaum College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, where they train mortuary sciences, pathologist assistants, having excellent toxicology training also to bring into this. So between improving the operations, which will remain our number 1, 2, and 3 in the short phase. Once we get to that level, I think a larger scope of partnership, and that's really what interested me personally and others in this. We would like to move this partnership into a national model for an urban forensic medicine institute that provides the best services possible for the citizens of the county, while also training its own workforce with continuing improvement and providing data for this. While I worked hard on this contract with the leadership team that I mentioned, I would really like to recognize my Vice Dean for Finance, Thane Peterson, who really spent numerous weekends. In addition, both of us have full jobs, and just for the record, we are going through our own accreditation at the medical school. There is a body called the Liaison Committee on Medical Education, short LCME, which visits medical schools every 8 years. It's visiting us early in the spring of next year. And the amount of preparation for that alone is, so Thane and I and many other teams are involved with this. With that said, he found the time to work with Janelle and Brian and Melita to really address every component over 6 months. I believe this has been one of the most thorough contracts that we have worked through. I hope I highlighted what we plan to bring to the table, a short and then a longer term perspective to fulfill this partnership. We are very excited, honestly, to do this in partnership, and we will remain in, as I said, in lockstep with the county leadership to achieve these goals.
Madam Chair, I move approval of this item.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Thank you, Doctor, for your comments. We appreciate that. It's been moved and supported. I know you have some more slides, but I think we had a good analysis that was provided to us. Are there any specific questions for commissioners? Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank everyone for their efforts on this. And Janelle Allen especially. I believe she put in a tremendous amount of work, and I'm sure there were others that helped her, but with her physical condition, I think it really speaks to her dedication to this county. But I did want to ask just clarification. How will the responsiveness to the funeral directors and as far as death certificates and also to the families for inquiries be handled differently as far as training of the people they're talking to when they call in? And I'm hoping you're going to tell me that will be continuous training and to make sure they're meeting certain standards who speak to the public that are already in distress for the loss of a loved one, but how that will be handled to ensure that we're going to get a better product for the folks that are having to deal with the MEO's office.
I would say that that's part of the commitment, as Wayne State has said, with regard just with the whole managing the entire workforce for the office, that absolutely there will be professional development, training, so that we are meeting the highest standards. I'd also like to add that as part of this, we'll say the oversight structure, that we'll also be creating what's going to be called a joint advisory board that will be made up of key stakeholders who are external to the office, but who work regularly with the office. And on that board, and if you could advance to slide 34, this is something new because we say these will be, we'll say our eyes and ears and voice of the community and stakeholders. And on this advisory board, we'll have members, representatives from emergency services, from the funeral directors, law enforcement, prosecutor's office. The county will have some appointees. The commission will actually have some opportunity to appoint a constituent as well as the funeral home director. But again, we will see this board or this group as it will be advisory that will then be reporting up to what we're calling executive committee, again, to be our eyes, ears, and voice of the community. So issues that can rise can be addressed quickly, expediently, but also if things are going well, that we know that to continue that, or even if there's just some novel ideas that they'd like us to consider. But that would be another way we're saying to ensure that, again, all key stakeholders, in particular those who most interconnect and interact with the office, will have a constant voice with us.
Add to that, Janelle, if I may, Commissioner, that while the majority of this advisory body are the stakeholders in the county, there is limited representation of the university to hear these issues and be able to respond to them timely.
Thank you. The other question I had was as far as reports that the commission can be assured. I mean, do you have, I might have missed it, like quarterly reports, and then I would think that as things get better, you know, from what our experience has been down there, that we might be able to extend that out to 6 months or a year. But I'd just like to see some type of reports for the commission.
Absolutely. Actually, that's directly expressly stated in the agreement. If you could advance to slide 36, 37. So actually, we do have, we know that this has come out through a number of our discussions about regular reporting to stakeholders, in particular to this body, as well as to the county executive. So we do have a number of commitments in this agreement about reports. And one, we'll see that here, at least with the commission in particular, we'll see that we are committed to at least biannually, we say at least, that if we need to do it more regularly, we will do so, but at least there'll be formal reporting to the commission as well as to Wayne State's Board of Governors. We also have in here where there will be also quarterly reports where Wayne State will be reporting out to the county executive's office. We also have mentioned that we will have what is called an executive committee, and that is where we're saying about making sure that we have executive leadership engagement constantly and consistently. And that'll be a number of the reports will be coming out of there. And then we're also committing to doing what a number of other offices do, an annual report. It really encompasses what has gone on in the office throughout the entire year and something that will be published and will be available to the public. But yes, we will be reporting out formally to the commission at least biannually and regularly if needed.
Last thing I have is the transportation. I know it said that would be subcontracted. And if I'm not mistaken, the county bought vans a few years ago for the operation. And I believe there was, I don't remember how many there were, but I don't, or will those wind up? Are they still there? Will they be utilized and employees hired to transport bodies?
Well, actually, the county does not transport bodies. That is subcontracted out. Are the vehicles that we use our investigators use those, the forensic investigators. And actually, we had 2 vehicles that were actually pretty on their last legs, but we actually were able to, with this body support, able to procure 2 new vehicles just in the last month or so. I don't know if they've been delivered, but we have the others, but those are used again by our forensic investigators to go on scene.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all the work that's gone into this. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a list, Commissioner Baker McCormick, then Commissioner Varga.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too just want to thank Janelle and Director Jordan for all the work that you have done. I know we talked back and forth about many of these items, and especially in addressing the audit items. That was important to me, and you made sure that I think all of the issues were handled and addressed in this new contract. So I really appreciate that. I also appreciate that we're now going to have a COO. I think that that's important for us to have a key person to talk to on any of the issues. I know I had a concern one night and I had to call Janelle, and I think if we had a point person like a COO over the ME's office, that would help us in all areas. And then also the advisory board, as Commissioner Anderson mentioned, the director, funeral directors, they should have a voice in how we function, and if they have any issues, they now will have a voice in how things are accomplished and any changes that are needed. So I really appreciate this contract and the thought that went into it, because I think you checked almost, for me, every box. So thank you so much.
I'll add, Commissioner, that also Wayne State did a very parallel step to the county. We are employing on the university expense outside the contract, a liaison person within the university whose primary and possibly only job will be to address any medical examiner's office concern.
I may add as well that the COO will be a Wayne State employee who their house leading the operations. The county has in the fiscal year 23 budget a new position as an MEO division director. So the medical examiner's office is a division within our organizational structure, but it did not have a division director. We will also be hiring a division director who also will work exclusively with the medical examiner's office.
Thank you. Commissioner Varga?
Thank you. My question is regarding the toxicology reports. Is the toxicology still going outstate, and that's what's taking so long currently, as I understand?
Thank you for the question. Yes, actually, for the time being, at least, we will continue with the same arrangement of sending these out to a national lab, Quest, but with hopefully different expectations for the turnaround time and making these reports available much more timely. We will explore the possibility of being able to bring them into a Wayne State lab with the school that I mentioned, the Eugene Applebaum.
That would be really great. I personally had called, and one of my constituents wanted to have a quicker answer on the toxicology because of either lawsuit or insurance reasons. They didn't specify, but I gather.
The toxicology test cost should be absorbed within the complete autopsy workup. There should not be a cost to the family of the deceased.
It was the test result they were waiting for.
Okay, sure.
Thank you much.
Thank you. Commissioner Colleen?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Ms. Allen, in the memo we received from Commission Counsel, she had some questions about the Executive Committee. And am I correct in that there is some ongoing discussions about that and how it's worded? Am I correct in that is what's happening?
Yes, you're correct.
So we may look at an amendment to the contract, perhaps, depending on how those discussions go.
Yes, if that is needed, yes.
Okay, that's great. I'm glad to hear that that's happening. Reporting everywhere. I see monthly reports in the memo we got from the director. Quarterly reports, biannual reports to us. Is there, what's going to be posted on the website? I don't know what the monthly reports that were referred to in the director's memo to us. But what are we going to have? Is there like a pro forma for what's going to be in that report?
We have not developed that yet, the template, but we do know that we'll have key statistics, trends, in particular will be in there, but we'll be developing that through our executive committee.
Yeah, because I like the notion that we're going to be using this data for public health. And that's one set of numbers. There may be some other set of numbers that are of more interest to the general public in what we have. So I'll be very curious to see, but how often are we anticipating that we're going to be posting to a public website with, there is something now, but it's only in one area. When do you anticipate we're going to have a more expanded report out there on the WeberNet?
Thank you, Commissioner. So Ms. Jordan and us, I'm specifying Melita because she's in charge of the operation, are going to be developing these metrics over the next 90 days. And the monthly report meant to come from the operations to the executive committee. We envision the executive committee, which has majority county membership, 4 county, 3 Wayne State, that these reports will come to the executive committee on a monthly basis. And matter of fact, in the beginning, we may choose to do that even more frequently because of the need for rapid improvement in operations. I think in consultation with this body, the amount of information to be put on the website need to reflect the key performance metrics of the office. And I think we will develop some very make sense ones and we can share them with you. And Melita, if you have anything to add to this. Please.
Yeah, because we're all very sensitive now to how sensitive this is to the general public. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay. And I don't know where, I've got memos, I got staff analysis, I got memos from Director Jordan, I got a lot. Somewhere in the paperwork, it said the operating agreement contemplates a new facility. Have we decided that or are we still studying it, whether the facility up at Warren and the freeway up there is adequate?
No, it says that we will contemplate. Right now, because of the,
Oh, see, the way I saw it, it said the operating agreement contemplates.
well, we know that we must proceed with our plan renovations because
Right.
there's just such extensive need now. And we couldn't even if we had thought that perhaps we could do some, scale back to the minimum, go to a new building, the minimum really is, they're so extensive that it will extend the useful life of the current building for 10 to 15 years. So what we are saying with regard to, we have not thoroughly vetted a new facility. Yes, our staff, as well as along with Wayne State, had gone to review the building, I believe it's on Prentice, and it will require some extensive renovations. And so what we've said is that we will evaluate that option, because if we do decide that ultimately a new building might be a part of the overall plan, it will be done in a phased approach over an extended period of time, unlike what we're contemplating with the CJC, that one night you're in one facility, the next morning you're in the other. We would not envision that with a medical examiner's office now, giving all the investments we must make now, and it's going to extend the life. But we will be contemplating, should we be moving to a facility, planning for, we'll say, the future.
Oh, just for now, ongoing conversation after the renovation.
Yes,
And I
but
meant to
moving
ask
full
you,
speed ahead with the renovations.
and I meant to ask you under the reporting, who's going to do the reporting to the commission? Will that come through? Well, we have a new Jack in town. We got rid of the old Jack with a name change, and not talking about that, but now we got Jack back in our acronym database. Will it be the Jack, especially since that has a couple of commission appointees on it that do the reporting to the commission? Who's going to give us the report?
The executive committee. So
The executive committee itself.
Yes, the executive committee, yes.
Okay. I hope the call center works out. That was one thing that you sounded very confident about it. What I heard is somebody in Paducah, Kentucky is going to pick up the phone, and I'm like, uh-oh. So the call center is going to be right here, right local, and it's going to mesh well with, because they're not going to be employees of the MEOs. So how's that going to work?
I don't know if.
Who are they going to call, and how are those people going to interface with the ME's office to get responses?
Ms. Jordan will address that.
Call center will actually be a combination of the technology and the staff that work within the MEO's office and administrative staff. So therefore, we put in these enhancements in because the platform for that call center is able, as I mentioned, to have calls in the queues as well as to triage the calls to the staff that's there, and or to be able to connect the information from a previous call with individuals. So it's not going to be outsourced someplace else, like in another state or elsewhere. They will be working very closely within the local area with the call center and the individuals with the platform for the technology.
Because what we've discussed in the run up to this is, and I personally have had this experience, but I also hear about it from constituents, that we didn't necessarily have what you might call a receptionist over there, somebody to answer the phone and then say, okay, I'll transfer you to this person, I'll transfer you to that person. I've sat on that phone for quite some time waiting for somebody to pick up after I talk to the original person. So are they going to have this kind of, for lack of a better word, receptionist ability that in real time when somebody calls, the call center will pick up, but they can route those calls immediately to who they need to go to?
That is correct. There will not be someone having you wait and no one gets back to you.
Yeah.
That system will not exist at all.
Because you started talking about triaging the calls and where they go, and I don't want to, like, you know, it's going to take two days of decision-making in a matrix to say which calls go through and which ones don't.
Not at all, not at all. But as you know, oftentimes people will call about, maybe they're calling about a death certificate, and or they may be calling because it may be the fee situation. So again, that's what I meant by triage in terms of what the actual person is calling about.
Okay. It's funny with words, how you say one thing and mean something by it, and I hear that word and I think of something
Didn't
else.
mean to confuse you.
Yeah. And Madam Chair, I do have one question for Commission Counsel. In one of her memos, she alerted us to the fact that there can be some agreements made in the name of the county. And I believe you were referring to the EC with that regard. First of all, Counsel, do you know what I'm referring to?
Through the chair, yes.
And do you have any issues with that?
Under the agreement, it's Wayne State will have the ability to enter into contracts in the name of Wayne County with regards to the operations of the MEO. That is not a standard term, but that was a term, a provision that was included in the U of M MEO contract, but it's not something that we typically see.
And so I guess I'd ask Ms. Allen then, since agreements being made in the name of the county, what is the protection there?
So
Since we don't see it, we don't know nothing about it.
And I would, if further defer to our attorneys, but by way of an example, we're seeing like a utility bill. We do not envision something that directly tied to the day-to-day, the core function, the essential functions falling under that. I believe it's more of a standard term that has been in the county's contracts. But I would tell you right now, we do not envision a contract that will be in direct relation to operation of the office. Like I say, an example that our attorneys gave was maybe a utility.
Because, you know, Ms. Allen, I sit in the chair of Trust and Verify. And so I'm a little nervous when the language isn't there. And the answer is, trust me, don't worry about that. It's something about the electric bill. So there's no other wording that we can put in there, because also, I mean, I'm not here forever. You're not here forever. 10 years or whatever down the line, an attorney somewhere reads this or purchasing and goes, hey, we can do this. There's nothing prohibiting us from doing it. And that's the concern I have, that we're leaving an open door or a trap door if we don't have language that is tighter on that. You have any comment on that?
We'll need to defer to our attorneys.
Always the attorneys.
She's here in Nkrumah.
Afternoon, name and title for the record.
Nkrumah Johnson Wynn, Chief Assistant Corporation Counsel. So Commissioner, I believe you're referring to section 2.7. This speaks directly to utility and service agreements.
2.7, you're gonna quote from the agreement?
Yes, the
So
operating
I'll
agreement.
agree with you. I say, sure, that's what I'm referring to, 2.7. Commission Counsel, is that what I'm referring to? Okay.
So to the extent that the agreement indicates that the administrator has the authority to negotiate and consummate contracts, it would specifically be for utility and service, not for a panoply of other opportunities or to somehow use or misuse the funds of the county to engage in conduct that is not consistent with this agreement. So it is a very narrow bandwidth, and it is specifically that one provision.
So you're confident, people like this term of art, that the appropriate guardrails are in place here?
I am.
Okay. Okay, I just want to, you know, I see stuff like this, and before I give stuff the green light, I need to be comfortable in terms of what it means. So appreciate the response. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner
Thank you,
Dodd?
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair, but Commissioner Clean asked my question, which was regarding the call center. So I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Pro Tem Baydun.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Allen, Ms. Jordan, and Doctor, and all your staff for the hard work on putting this agreement together. I fully support this agreement, especially after hearing several stories about the mismanagement and mistakes at the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office. I just have a quick question. When it comes to missing bodies or unclaimed bodies, will Wayne State take additional steps to reach out to try to find those family members? Because there was a case, if I remember correctly, there was a woman that was missing for several months, and after they found out that her body was cremated without their knowledge, what steps can we take to contact family members or try to reach some family members so they can claim bodies if they're at the morgue?
Melita Jordan, Director for the Department of Health and Human Services. Commissioner Baidoon, very good question. And again, we are making sure that there is definitely the follow-up, again, in terms of if there is an inquiry to the department, meaning to the MEO's office, we do follow up on that. That was one of the areas that there was not a lot of, I would say, accountability previously. So therefore, we are making sure that we have accountability steps in place so that if there is an inquiry from the public and or an inquiry, of course, from a news media, we are making sure that we do follow up with the forensic pathologist in the office in terms of those, the data. Like I said, with the new technology, again, every call is recorded. Every call is captured now or will be captured. Let me say that as we move into this new operating agreement beginning October 1st. So we will be able to make sure that there is significantly follow up in terms of addressing the concerns of the public. If the law enforcement contacted us to say that there was a concern or there was a missing body and that's what usually happens, that we get a call from either the media or we get a call from law enforcement or we get a call from the public to say that we have, we have concern about a loved one that we have not been able to find. You can go into the database that we currently have, that's on the website, and start there, or you can call the office, and again, you will get that follow-up and assistance, and then we can make sure that we reach out. If we have additional information, we can help reach out to family members, neighborhoods, and we had actually, you may recall, we pulled together a focus group of funeral directors before, and they provided us with a lot of information that they asked if we would just reach out to some of them as well. They have information. There are certain areas of the county where there are a number of them, blanket on the name, like homeless shelters, but there are charitable organizations that know that individuals normally come to their area frequently, and then all of a sudden they start to not see them anymore. They oftentimes reach out to us to let us know that, have you seen this particular person, and or they have information regarding someone that they may have previously seen that they don't currently see anymore. And they could be a missing person and or a unclaimed body that could have been found elsewhere.
If I may add, I think too, there's something that's intangible, but something that's very significant. It's actually going to be changing the whole culture of the office, really bringing in a higher level of empathy, respect, understanding, meaning that if someone is looking for a loved one, that they will leave no stone unturned to help identify that. So that's something I think that should be said as well. Again, and I think that's measurable, but I think that when we're talking about standards and how the culture, that'll be a big impact on just the staff and the commitment and dedication to helping identify those who have not been identified or not claimed.
And if I may, I think what I'm hearing also, Vice Chair and Commissioner Baidoon asking is maybe about a more detailed, specific protocol for this entity. I think what you heard from both Ms. Allen and Ms. Jordan is the general approach to it, which we will do everything possible to identify and communicate. While a protocol would not capture every possible scenario, I think part of what we will be doing over the next couple of months is to make sure that we have as specific of a protocol for every category as possible, and we'll be happy to share that with you. I'm saying that because we, again, will be owning the operation in partnership with.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional discussion from members? Any additional closing comments, Ms. Allen?
Would like to particularly thank the commission staff. We know that this was a lot of information in a very short amount of time, and they were just phenomenal in their questions, and we were able to meet. And so I did want to give them a special thank you for how diligent, cooperative, collaborative in helping us be prepared for this presentation.
Thank you. And again, thank your entire team, Wayne State University, Doctor, thank you and your team. This was a monumental task to get this done. I know you've been working diligently for months, making sure that the information from the audit was addressed, from technology to call center to the reporting and the oversight, which was very important to all of us, the oversight piece especially. So thank your team for all of the work that you've done to make sure that this was a sound agreement. I know it had to go past the mustard at Wayne State as well and their members, and they had a keen eye on it as well. So just thank all the parties involved. This was a very big deal to get us to this point. And we're at the 27th, I believe today's date is, and this will be executed if passed today on October 1st. So we're right up to the wire, but I knew it took a lot of discussions and negotiations and compromises to get us to where we are today. We have a motion and there was support. Hearing no further discussion, please vote.
There's blue, source blue, is that?
Oh, it does say
Okay.
source blue. Hold please on your vote.
I do want to recognize our staff. We know there have been a lot of long nights and weekends back and forth. And want to personally thank all of our staff who just committed. We could not have done this with each of you. So thank you.
Corp Counsel, Ms. Jordan, Mr. Manning, everyone, thank you so much for your due diligence.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Anderson?
you aware that it says source blue on there?
Yeah, we're fixing it now.
And I still have to vote, so.
Everybody's has to vote.
Oh,
We're-
you're
we're
gonna
clear
do
the
all
board
of it over.
and
Okay.
correct the language.
I
That's
see.
why we're giving accolades until that's fixed. So any more accolades? All right, so as soon as this is up. And thank you, Ms. George, for coming in. I hope you have a speedy recovery. I don't know how much longer you have for your wearing your boot, but speedy recovery for
Thank
full
you.
health. And thank you for coming down today in your condition.
Good to be back in person.
Madam Clerk, when the board is ready. All right, to move things along, we'll do a roll call vote and have that for the record, Madam Clerk. Looks like the system, oh, is up? If they're not ready, roll call vote.
Commissioner Clark Coleman? Yes. Commissioner Dobb?
Yes.
Commissioner Hattis? Yes. Commissioner Khalil?
Aye.
Commissioner Kinlock?
Yes.
Commissioner Marecki?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker McCormick?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott? Yes. Commissioner Varga?
Yes.
Vice Chair Pro Tem Baydun,
Yes.
Vice Chair Palomero,
Yes.
Chair Bell,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you so much. Thank you all again. Next item, please.
Here on page 4 of the agenda, testimonial resolutions and certificates of appreciation, there is one item listed.
Move approval.
Okay, it's been moved. Support. Testimony resolution, is that up? If it's not, I'll do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Chair, can I
Yes,
just say a few words about Alexis, who we are honoring today? She is a female veteran, and she just recently retired from the Veterans Administration. She, I can't really say how wonderful and this woman is. She is a fighter for women veteran, seeking out resources out of her own pocket every day to support women veterans. She is the founder of Motown Women Veterans, again, an organization that ensures that women veterans get what they deserve in the community and that women veterans aren't isolated. And she has built a strong, very strong network of women veterans all over the country, not just in Detroit. She's also a poet. She wrote several poems about the veterans' experience and has had those poems published. And so I just wanted to commend her on all the work that she has done for women veterans and for the Veterans Administration.
How long has she worked there?
20 years.
20 years,
Yes.
okay, very good.
And
She's-
prior to that, she was, in the military, so, yeah.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
recognizing her, and we wish her well and prosperity in her retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we did vote already, so. All right, thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
On memoriams, there are 3 names listed.
Okay, Commissioner Kinlock has stepped away. Are there any names to be added to memoriams for today? We do have a meeting next week as well. Hearing none, please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Public comments.
Is there anyone in the chambers for public comments? There's 2 minutes. Anyone in the chambers for public comments? On Zoom, we have Mr. Michael Cunningham. You can take him off of mute. Okay, there you go, Mr. Go ahead, sir.
Honorable body, last time I was on, I was talking about trying to get you commissioners to get on the Detroit Department of Transportation to ride the coaches. Now, I know you have no bearing. That is not your responsibility. But I wanted to get you guys to be empathetic for your constituents that have to ride the bus. So you can write a letter to DDOT, you can write a letter to City Council, you can contact them. You have connections, you have juice, you have power. And so that was the point. I know you are not responsible for DDOT, but I travel around cheaply, I would say. I'm a very poor man on Spirit and Greyhound, other areas to get to other cities. And our bus system is one of the worst. DDOT, Detroit Department of Transportation. They're in a major need to hire folks. If you got to collaborate on that. You can collaborate, you can use your juice, you can use your power and your influence. My name on Facebook is Forced Subservience Cunningham, Forced Subservience Cunningham. I believe the powers that be have mutated humble, nice, and kind to the word subservience. Everybody under the sound of our voice, look up the word subservience. Subservience, I will never be. I am nice. I am kind. I do random acts of kindness. I give out free rides to mothers and things of that nature in the taxi cab. I do good things. But I am a direct person and I'm pretty straightforward. And I know the higher power loves me. Just want to let the people listening, you can get kind of like a taxi service if you're handicapped or disabled. It's called MetroLift. And you can call DI directly, 313-933-1300. It's $2 one way around that amount. So again, that's 313-933-1300. That's Detroit Department of Transportation. If you have some disability, they'll pick you up from door to door. You don't have to walk out a mile and get to the bus stop. Again, a door to.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Next person, Mr. Robert Pulaski.
You almost had it there, as Pulowski. No worries. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Robert Pulowski from Southgate, Wayne County. So I want to make two things known. I want to give a big shout out to Commissioner Palomera for coming out to the splash pad opening in Southgate a couple weeks ago. We appreciate the support from all the community leaders and welcoming this new splash pad into our community. It was a big investment coming in from State Senator Darren Camilleri, and all the amazing support we've had from the community has been absolutely amazing. So I want to give a big thank you to Commissioner Palomeri for all of the good things that he did for this and making this come to life in Southgate. Also, our mayor and city council, thank you for the amount of work we've put in working with city residents. The next thing I want to announce is I want to thank this commission for my acceptance into the Wayne County Youth Council. It is my honor and pleasure to pursue this and bring my leadership and more youth leadership to Downriver and represent Wayne County Youth Council. It'll be my honor and pleasure to represent and work with other council members all across this county, walking to other walks of life, working with people from different backgrounds. And I absolutely am excited for this opportunity. And I look forward to working with everybody, especially Commissioner Baker McCormick. I look forward to bringing you ideas, bringing in speakers, and hopefully getting some education, but also bringing people to, bring some leadership into the council. But, it's a good day in Wayne County, and I look forward to being a part of this and serving the good people of Wayne County. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for joining us. Good luck with the Youth Council. Ms. Lisa?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today, I acknowledge and echo a plea Commissioner Killeen so appropriately made to this commission in a prior meeting. He said, and I quote, "Oversight and transparency are due the public." With that, I bring forward an example of oversight by your commission that has been absent and presents a seemingly lack of transparency. I am referring to the Wayne County Building Authority, a board appointed by the Wayne County Executive, but in fact approved by your commission that acquires, owns, operates, and maintains buildings, and also building sites for lease and ownership in our county. Truly a critical function. Your commission was notified on July 27th that 2 members of this board have terms expired on the county government website. Yet this morning, 2 months later, 4 out of those same 5 members now have terms expired, 1 as of 2 years ago. Shannon Price is the only member current. As a constituent, I ask, where's the oversight and how do we trust the follow-up in this regard? Constituents of Wayne County look forward to transparency on this issue. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Do we have any emails? Can I read those, please?
Hello, Wayne County Commissioners. With Biden's recent declaration that the pandemic is over, what does this honorable body plan on doing to protect the medical freedom of Wayne County residents from moving forward? How can you declare that this commission values diversity, saying in your budget documents that we promote uniqueness among individuals by valuing their ideas and experiences, but at the same pass egregious resolutions like the resolution by Commissioner Kinlock calling upon businesses located within and/or that do business with Wayne County to exercise responsible corporate citizenship and support social justice and free and fair access to the democratic process for the citizens as amended. Basically, you're willing to brashly tell businesses how and where to spend their money and what kind of candidates to support, but you're unwilling to urge businesses not to discriminate against employees who have a different viewpoint on what medications are appropriate for them as an individual, like the COVID-19 jab, for example. How does that display the value of diversity? Why don't you act on the value of diversity and pass a resolution to ban discrimination in Wayne County due to medical status, just like employees have protection against discrimination due to their sex, gender, age, etc.? I'd like to see this commission actually display real value for diversity for a change. Sincerely, Dr. Leah Riley.
Do you have another one?
Yes. Good morning, commissioners. We have repeatedly heard your commission receive and file third-party audits in our county that reveal multiple performance deficiencies in our current government process. The blame is consistently placed on staffing shortages for the lack of accountability and efficiency in Wayne County government. Yet months later, we still have not heard an actual plan to resolve the continued employment vacancies. With that stated, it was also noted in a recent meeting that the suggestion to have an outside firm compare Wayne County employment contracts with other municipalities was dismissed. How is this commission going to ascertain the substantiated reasons workers have left our county and also ensure that post-pandemic Wayne County does not experience the same failures? As we leave the pandemic behind, your constituents no longer want excuses, but instead successful strategies for an efficient staff with true accountability to bring our county forward. Michelle Reese.
Next item.
Reconsiderations.
There are none.
Remarks by members.
One nice little remark yesterday was Commissioner Vice Chair Palomera's birthday. Therefore, his staff has cake for him on the 7th floor. So please go upstairs and have some cake to celebrate Joey's birthday, but make sure you have lunch first. No. Happy birthday, Joey. Any other remarks by members? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? All right, meeting